one thing that left has done, and we talked about this last week too at the conference, was they know where to go. And this is why President Obama, on the night of the MTV Video Music Awards, was tweeting Katy Perry about Obamacare with the hashtag roar. Now, I would have liked to, at that moment, quizzed every member of the RNC, Reince Priebus, all of the GOP leadership, and asked them if they knew what roar meant. Mm-hmm. Of course, is her new single that's come out, #1 song around the world, and that's where people were, gathering around that hashtag and around that cultural event.
Which brings us exactly where my notes were bringing
I knew
us.
That.
Because Andrew Breitbart, we mentioned him earlier, he always used to say politics is downstream from culture. So what role do you see our side playing in the pop culture? What do we need to do to get more exposure there, more of a better image?
One thing I think we can do better is claim conservative ideas when they're disseminated by Hollywood people who don't even realize they're conservative. And I always give the example of the show Shark Tank, which is one of my favorite shows. And apparently I'm not alone in this, because it is the #1 show on Friday nights on ABC. Here it is celebrating, I don't know, those evil ideas of venture capitalism and entrepreneurship. And it's celebrated. It's popular. The profit motive is a good thing, and people seem to instinctively understand this. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's what we're about. Hello.
Yeah, and that's not the only one either. I mean, like some of these ones, like on the Food Network, the Restaurant Impossible, where it comes in and whips the business into shape, and shows them what they need to do.
Yeah. Small business, self-made business people, entrepreneurs striving to make it in America. All of these shows are about the American dream, one way or the other. And of course, the ultimate example is Duck Dynasty, where it's a celebration not only of a family business, but of family values. So, there's a lot of moaning and groaning about, the need for better content produced by conservative artists and songwriters and playwrights, et cetera, and we need it from both ends. I also think that what Republicans shouldn't do is make the mistake of pandering to pop culture when it doesn't reflect their values. And so I cringe when I hear some up-and-coming Republicans citing NWA as their favorite rap group, and I'm thinking, really? Nobody believes you. Stop embarrassing yourself and NWA and everybody else. Nobody's buying that. Again, it comes back to this idea of just being authentic, not selling out your principles, and yet realizing, just the way Reagan did, that there's a way to broaden the tent without completely flattening it and making it meaningless.
Right. Yeah, I think where a lot of the conservative artists I know talk about it, that say you need to make good art as a conservative. Don't make conservative art.
Yeah.
Because then people are attracted to good art.
Yeah, that's right.
And then if your conservatism is there and you're not ashamed of it, then they get some of that message. But if you do any kind of message music that has songs that are like message songs, or novels that are message novels, they really turn people off.
They
because they become less about story than they are about just preaching a message.
Right. That's certainly true. The one caveat I would say is, and I see this mistake sometimes, or I don't know what you want to call it, I don't like it, is disparaging popular conservative music that people just happen to like to consume. And there's an entire genre of country music, and they're unapologetic about their patriotism, and people like it. So don't knock it if it's working.
Right, but that country music, I think, would fall into a different category almost, because it's always sort of been that way. It's more about very pro-American. It's kind of like on one of the originally American art forms. And everything. So when people try to do it in rock and roll and things like that, it comes off sometimes very ham-handed.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
one of my favorite lines from King of the Hill whenever he was talking about the Christian rock band. He says, "You're not making Christianity better, you're making rock and roll worse." You know? You know? So,
Yeah. Oh, I definitely hear you. And I think the last leg of what we can do is, and we try to do this with Tritchie, is support the Hollywood celebrities that are out there that have had the courage to come out
James
of
Woods.
the closet. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that is such a conundrum because we want more conservatives in Hollywood, and yet they face an enormous amount of ostracism for coming out of the closet. Like, somebody told me something interesting who works in Hollywood. And they said, sometimes there's a sense that it's not so much that you've come out of the closet as, in any workplace, there's politics and there's work.
right.
And if you mix it too much and make one your identity, then nobody's going to like that. But I think, the stigma, of course, is very real. There are a lot of people who do have to stay in the closet and underground, and that's awful. And so I'm thinking of a particular moment during the last campaign when Kelly Clarkson and Michelle Branch were on Twitter, and they had both come out, and it had been known for some time that they were, I wouldn't call them right-wingers, but they were wavering between Ron Paul and Mitt Romney. And any time that you see some young popular person in pop culture who's there as opposed to here, you just want to, give them a big bear hug. And both of them had faced, an onslaught of hatred for even coming out that far and dipping their toe.
Yeah.
So it's damn hard.
Yeah. The thing that gets me is sometimes, go back to Laurie and Crump's book, Shut Up and Sing, and
Yes.
it's like, you don't want to hear about people's politics, but yet then we're kind of happy when we see,
Yeah.
somebody come out on our side. But
Yeah.
it's not so much like that it validates anything, a lot of people would look at the celebrities as validating their opinion when they come out with it. To me, it's just like, I'm just glad somebody's there who believes that.
Yes. Yeah.
I wrote a blog post about that a couple of years ago. I discovered it was that Gary Graham is a conservative. Because I always liked his TV show, Alien Nation. I was a big fan of that show. And I saw that. That's really cool. But it wasn't so much that it validated anything for me. I'm just glad to know, that he's there.
Yeah.
Doing that. So,
Yeah.
So, how did you ever come up with the idea for Twitchy?
Let's see. I signed up for Twitter in 2008, and I didn't really use it all that much. I used it to get in touch, actually, with some bloggers on the ground during the Democratic National Convention. And then it was sort of dormant for a while, and then it really picked up, in that ensuing year. And the same way that when I started Hot Air, I saw that somebody should fill this vacuum in production of original content, video content. I saw the same thing with Twitter. I knew where we were headed. And it was the amorphous and ephemeral nature of Twitter at the time, where nobody was curating what was going on. There was no central clearinghouse for looking at all these amazing conversations that were going on, news that was being broken. And so, it goes back to the whole idea of what we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation. I didn't ask for permission. I, self-funded it the same way that I self-funded Hot Air. And a lot of people didn't understand what I was trying to do at first. And so when we launched, people said, well, I don't get it. I don't get it. But, it's been key, I think a key theme over the last 20 years that I've been in this business, in both old media and new media, that controlling narratives is very important. And if you're not in the game, you're not going to make any difference at all. I think it was this is the next big wave. I mean, and by the time I had gotten the idea and we started the ball rolling on it, you had BuzzFeed, but it's not quite in our same space of what we're trying to do. I mean, I think a year out now, more than a year out, there still isn't anybody else competing in this specific space. I mean, you have conservative news outlets that have branched out and realized now, oh, we need to be curating Twitter content, but that is our primary focus. And there's been a number of stories over the last year, you know, by the time we had celebrated our first anniversary, of where we realized the leverage that we have, the power that we have to help push back against the mainstream media or Hollywood celebrities, political narratives. You know, we always like to joke that Twitchy and Twitter are forever, so that's definitely a huge aspect of it. You know, catching people in the act of trying to whitewash, you know, their manufactured history, which is a huge part of it. And then we've talked about, you know, culture. And again, even just being in that space, you know, we like to be listening in and eavesdropping on this global water cooler, even if it isn't, you know, necessarily partisan politics, because life isn't.
It's easy to get caught up in it.
Yes.
But yeah, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But, have you thought about extending Twitchy to like state level?
Wow. If I had a lot of venture capital, I would do that. That would be a fantastic idea.
Because when you started Twitchy about the same time I started doing some blogging for this Maryland Citizen Action Network that is part of the Front Light Today thing. And one of the things I was trying to do is kind of start compiling some of the Twitter things, some of the lunatic statements by our governor, and Governor O'Malley would say, he says really dumb things on Twitter sometimes. And just, there's a lot of people not using Twitter. If you can just get it out there, like Twitchy does.
Yeah.
It's there, you know, it's searchable, it pops up on, you know, when somebody Googles a story or whatever. But I think it would be a fantastic thing if it was like, whoa, state level Twitchies to follow the state level politicians.
I love it. I would love a 50 state proliferation of state level Twitchies. Just do it. Yeah.
But so are there any other plans in the works for anything new coming out, or any books, or any more new media
Well,
stuff?
just stay tuned. You know, I always say, like, and I promise my husband and my kids that the morning that I woke up and I have nothing to say anymore is the morning I'm just quitting. I'll fly fish, that's it, I'm done. But I'm not quite there yet.
Where do you fly fish?
Oh, here.
Well, I'm sure here, but this is where I learned to fly fish, is in Colorado.
Oh, no
where
kidding.
Here,
yeah, I thought my secrets. But yeah, you know, I think I still have a lot in me left to do, and I think, especially after this last election, you know, in January I said, you know, education is such an important thing to me, education and cultural issues, and realizing after this last election that doing the full-on expose, sunlight is the best disinfectant, you know, that wasn't enough. And I feel that a lot of conservatives are feeling that way, and I think you see it in these trends of a lot of the books now that are coming out. They're not your sort of straight polemical things. They're Mark Levin, 3 weeks now, #1 New York Times bestseller, and it's not your, you know, sort of typical anti-Obama book. He's actually putting forth, you know, conservative solutions and ideas, and getting people to look back in history as a solution for moving forward. Rush Limbaugh coming out with this book, children's book, called Fear, inspiring, you know, this young generation of Americans and hopefully conservatives to feel proud of their country and reinstilling that fervor. So rather than just all the time.
All right. Well, just to wrap it up, what do you think the top 3 things our side needs to do before 2014?
Defeat amnesty, defeat Common Core, roll back Obamacare as much as we possibly can, realizing that even if we succeeded with defunding, that the damage that's been done is really incalculable in terms of dissuading bright young people to get into medicine, in terms of the R&D that's been cut and the stifling of innovation that's helped us be number one in the world in delivering medical care. And I think as part of that, really connecting the dots for this generation of young people and helping them understand how devastating the effects of Obamacare have been on them.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You bet, Jim, always.
Yeah,
Safe
good.
travels, man.